Welcome back to the randInt podcast with Raffy and Chandra. Hooray!
Yay. Clickety clack, clickety clack.
Yeah, the last episode, Chandra couldn't stop fiddling with stuff. I'm sure you guys noticed in the background. So this time, no, just
Jingle,
stop it early.
jingle, 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 jingle. No, I don't have my keys here.
Oh no, what a terrible thing. It's
so difficult.
It's like after 4 seasons, we still haven't quite learned our lesson from episode 1. Don't eat shit. Don't have background noises.
Speaking of which, I'm kind of hungry.
We thought, since I am now back in Australia, we would do a quick how are you and talk about the other differences that we didn't get quite the chance to do last episode on Australia versus America.
So you are fresh off the boat. Just landed back, aren't you?
Yes, well, I don't have a boat, unlike you. So, Chandra, how are you?
I am less freshly off a boat now. Been working for the last, I think it's 3 weeks now. Yeah, it feels like a lot. Oh, I know. Quite difficult, I got to say, this working thing. It's very difficult. But I'm settling into a good work balance. Not really a work-life balance. It's more of a work balance is what I'm finding here.
Yeah, I think when you get to do 6 months on a boat, that's your balance, you know? I don't think anyone's even bothering to get a tiny violin out for you.
No violin? Oh.
Wait. People are, what are they doing? They are laughing in your face.
Well, that's a bit rude.
But yeah, what's it like being back on land?
Basically just trying to balance the startup job plus the clinical job. It is kind of nice though, actually, I have to say, working on, because the startup is directly related to my work and I use it every day in the clinic. It just means that actually doing the stuff for the startup is much better and faster. And some of the stuff is actually much easier to do while I'm working clinically. So, for example, working on a little sprint to try and improve the outputs. And initially, we were sort of doing that as a batch thing and having a look in the past as what's a better versus poorer output. But then actually doing it live in clinic with like the patient you just saw with all of the details fresh in your mind is just so much easier.
And just for context for everyone, the startup is like a AI medical scribe. So when he says output, what he's saying is that, you basically do if you go to the doctor, instead of him clickety-clacking away, typing notes whilst he's trying to talk to you, you just talk and it just summarizes the conversation into the medical notes. So it's the tweaking it so that it's summarized nicely whilst maintaining, it's not just robot gibberish that you wouldn't normally write. So yeah, it's
essentially a way of becoming more lazy, which is ideal to
me. More boat time then.
Exactly. So it's been nice actually working on that together while I'm working again. Unfortunately, it does mean that I feel like I'm back to my exam roster. So I'm usually up early in the morning, and then I can use the time zone difference because Melbourne time is 2 hours after. So if I start with meetings around 6 o'clock or 5:31 to be precise, then that works before starting the next job. So kind of back to exam season.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Chandra is not an early riser.
Mornings, not really my forte.
There have been times where it's like, what? Yeah, didn't we say brunch? And I'm like, yes, it's now past midday. So brunch is long over.
Look, it's always brunch o'clock somewhere in the world, as is it always gin and tonic o'clock somewhere in the world.
Well, I mean,
not my fault. The world is just in the wrong place.
Yeah, you just need the boat everywhere. You need like magic teleportation boat.
That would be kind of cool. That would be cool. So what about you? How's settling back into Australia going?
It's been 4 days, so I'm still in. It's weird, right? So this time round, I got back at sort of at 11 o'clock in the morning, and that day I went to bed at a normal time, woke up the next day at a normal time. But once I'm awake, I have the weirdest, it's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, in the evening, I will have this intense desire to go to sleep, even though I've slept normally, right? Because it's 1 or 2 a.m. in San Francisco time. And then like right now, it's nearly 2 p.m. here, right? I haven't had breakfast, but I didn't really feel hungry for lunch. At about 3 o'clock, like I'm just starting to get peckish, and that'll be kind of like breakfast slash lunch. Like all the timing, it's just 17 hours difference. I just feel like my body's in some weird, like it doesn't quite line up to anything.
It's not quite there.
Yeah, and it's not lining up to any sort of useful schedule, but at the same time, I'm going to bed at at an appropriate time, waking up at the appropriate time, but everything else is kind of wonky. Like I'll just get like this intense desire to have a nap at like 10 a.m., like literally 3-4 hours after I've woken up. I'm like, what?
Oh,
I'm like,
I have that desire to have a nap at 10 a.m. too.
Yes, but you're just getting up half the time, or you're doing the like a 5:30 a.m. thing. Whereas this would be like 3 p.m. over in San Francisco. So it'd be like, I'd have an afternoon nap, or this is like after an hour long sitting in front of the computer. I'm like, all right, eyes are tired. Like I just need to like close them. Like, you start to get heavy eyes and stuff. So yeah, this weird time difference of 17 hours is what I'm inclined to. And also it's just like, I got back, and whilst I was away, it was my friend's butts party yesterday, and even though I was in San Francisco, it was my job to organize it. Yeah, so that was all yesterday. So we started so it was clay shooting, like people, yeah. So first time doing that, and somehow, against my better judgment, I won the trophy. So now I feel like I have more to explain to Asia.
That goes on the file.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is went to the US and now won prizes for shooting. Nothing sus.
Well, the thing is, I wanted to be like the guy in the Olympics, like the guy from Turkey who got second prize by basically not having any tools and just rocking up in like PJs and shooting. So like the biggest, it was me and another guy, and we were on sudden death. And I shot the first target, and it, exploded. And the second one, he missed. And I'm like, damn it, no, I'm meant to be the near miss. You're meant to like do it again. And then I'm like, oh, look, we nearly, I was meant to be the Turkish shooter, and I missed it up. But anyway, should we talk about more differences between America and Australia?
Yeah, well, why don't you start, since this is so fresh in your mind?
Yeah, okay. So we talked about a few of these things last time, but there were a few more that I just wanted to kind of ruminate on before, because I couldn't quite put it into words. And we touched on one of them, which is you can basically haggle on everything. And I think we talked about like your blood test results. Like I think you had some pathology results that you basically rang around and got like a cheaper price.
Yeah, it was quite weird that like for medical tests, needed to get my TB test done, and that was, $400 was the rack rate that was offered. And I phoned around a few places and say, I'll pay cash, and got it down to $60. I'm like,
that
yeah,
should make your brown jeans tingle. Yay, discount.
Absolutely. I was like, woohoo, discount.
I think like the converse to that is that you can obviously negotiate stuff, but the other part of it is that everything is negotiable. Like as in, even if it's not for sale, you could negotiate a sale, right? Like whatever it is, like you can kind of go, oh, I want that pot plant at a restaurant. And they're like, well, no, that's part of the restaurant. And you can probably come out with a way of getting that pot plant. Like everything is negotiable, I should say, not negotiable. And yeah, so that it's just like it's a very, like every society has transactions built into it, right? Like most things you do is like, if you want a coffee, you give someone money and you get a coffee. But it's just like the extent of which America has done this is like that much further. And that was, the longer I stayed, the more I started to realize that was true. It's like one of the things was, I wanted to drive the Cybertruck before I came. And it's just like, you look at any of the Hertz and whatnot, it's not there. And because it's still relatively
Did you just
new,
like throw cash at somebody's like Cybertruck window until they let you in?
Well, I mean, it's just going on Turo, but you look at Turo, right? And like, I remember about 4 weeks before I left, I was like,
Context, Turo is kind of like Airbnb for rental cars, right?
yeah. Or it's basically, yeah, you're just renting
You
it
can
off someone else.
basically rent somebody else's car sitting in their garage.
So about a month before I left, I was like, okay, I think I want to do that. And I logged in, and it's like, it was like $2,000 for the day or something. AUD to, like, it was something ridiculous because there was only like one, maybe two on there.
Okay.
And basically at like in those 3 weeks, I think deliveries have increased, and there was like 5. And so the price just went from like 2,000 down to like 200, right? So,
okay.
USD now. So like, it still cost me, like, with the insurances and everything, like $400-500 for the day. But
yeah,
but it was kind of like, I think I remember looking or even trying to Google, is this doable, when I first arrived, and there was nothing, right? But it's like very quickly it became like, yeah, you can pay a huge amount of money and do this thing that, the Cybertrucks have only been out for like a few months, apart from just like the very first deliveries, to like, yeah, now it's like log onto an app, like you're negotiating, or your pricing power is just like, pick the one you want. And this wasn't even the base model. This was like Foundation Edition, all-wheel drive, like the most spec'd out one that you can currently get, right? And I'm like, that's pretty awesome that it's transactional, but it moves so quickly that it went from this luxury product to semi-commodity in 4 weeks, and it's just like
something invisible hand of the free market, something,
yeah.
But not that invisible usually.
But it was just like, I don't think, say there was a new car here, that you would find it onto or an equivalent thing. Like, I don't think you could say like Porsche released something or other, right? I just don't think it would be 4 weeks before it goes from totally unavailable to available to relatively affordable. Like, I just don't think our arc is that quickly. It goes that quickly. So yeah, so that was kind of interesting. Again, related,
I guess it kind of
that,
fits in like with the wide spectrum of things where you can get the, car experience for thousands of dollars a day versus a couple of $100 a day. But then equally things move quickly as well, which is good and bad. They can go from good to bad very quickly. Like if you're one of the first people who had one of those trucks and was renting them out, you're like, this is great. And then a few weeks later, this is not so great.
Well, this is true. Like, I mean, it is like,
moral of the story, invest now. Nothing bad happens.
Buy all the Cybertrucks.
Exactly.
On that, it's kind of all semi notes, right? Like, because it feels like, what I realized was, in America, you can have a far better life than in Australia if you have the money. Now, it seems kind of like, well, you can have a far better life in Australia if you have the money, but it's like this magic threshold. Like, once you get into this upper echelon, it's like the entire American model seems to be like, there is way more convenience. Like, for example, if you go to the gym here, you can go to a high-end gym where you go to the gym, they'll have towels and whatnot. But America just takes that tiny bit further. You pay a lot for it, but they have a special locker that's just for you, and you just leave your clothes in, and it gets laundered and left right there. So it's like the ideal for you, right? Like, because I was just thinking, like, this is what you used to do with scrubs. Like, he wouldn't launder his own scrubs, so he'd use them as PJs, so he'd just have one set.
They were very comfortable pajamas in my defense. I have now actually paid for my own. Thank you very much.
But I mean, like, the thing is, I don't think we have things like that here. So there is the level of convenience is so much higher, but there is a price on it, right?
But it kind of makes sense too, because it's also like, population-wise, the number of people who'd be keen to pay for that is a bit lower. It's only a small portion of the population to be happy to pay, and like the entire population of Australia might fit into one city some places.
I think the difference is that here we would kind of look at it and go, let's say, I don't know, you need $1,000 a month for that locker to work, right? Most people starting up a gym would look at that and go, that's too expensive. If the gym membership is costing $50 and just the locker is $1,000 for laundry, we just won't have that as a service. But in America, I bet you that if there is a version which is like some ridiculous number, they'll put it in there and just go for that one or two people and then scale down, right? So I think they're not put off by ridiculously large numbers as much as Australia is, right? Like, as in, like, they're happy to build out a business model that is just so over the top. Like it may be a price of 0.1%, but they'll still build it because the 0.1, like as in genuinely, there's probably someone like who will pay that much who are in the 0.1%. And right now they have to custom build it. Whereas in the American way, it's like, no, we'll do that. You just pay us for it. And they're happier doing it that way. Like it's like this weird sort of mental shift that I didn't quite get. It's like, yeah, you can just build this super luxe thing. The immediate answer for any sort of slightly dumb idea is not no. It's like, yeah, go try it out. So in a weird way, they're like, you know, they're not unhappy to say they're the best at stuff. I think we covered this last time. But in a way, they're very humble on ideas. Like they don't judge. They're kind of like, yeah, go try it, right? Like the default is just go
Proof
try
is
it
in
first.
the pudding.
Yeah, and it's very
But I
much
guess
like
it's also kind of like the fear of failure tolerance as well.
yeah.
It depends on which circle. Like obviously you in San Francisco, like high tolerance circles of failure. But in those kind of bubbly areas, especially, that tolerance for failure is pretty high. So having a crack at doing something that might sound stupid, there's not as many sort of social barriers to doing that, knowing that you might fail. Because even if you do, it's like, meh, all right, well, I tried that and I learned a bunch of stuff. And now I'm on to stupid idea number 2 or
Well,
37.
and the thing is like there is appreciate people who have taken the chance, even if they've failed. Like as in, it's not oh, your CV looks crap because you tried this thing and it didn't work out. It's like, oh, you went and tried that thing. Yeah, it didn't work out, but you probably learned a bunch of stuff, right? That's the default societal expectation of someone having a go. It's like, hey, you did the thing, you took the risk, good on you. So that was the other big thing because there's so many of the, like even the guy who was in the ML lab, he was working at a equipment manufacturer, like basically just measurements and lab instruments and stuff, and basically figuring out, doing research on the calibration process. Because I didn't realize, like say if you get a blood test, right, and you get it from a GP practice, right, the calibration done on like a consumer grade or like, a community blood test machine is far lower than the ones in hospitals, because in hospitals, because you're sicker, the expectation is that you're probably going to have more tests. So the tolerances are tighter. So if you get
And
like a
it's like
slightly
the
off,
best tolerances are the ones on Theranos, right?
well, of course. So, okay, weird side note. Theranos, the company that was kind of fraudulent and went bankrupt and the founders in jail, almost got invited to a talk at the lab that I was at. And they were
Really?
like, thank God. They were like, we almost invited her. We're so glad we didn't, because otherwise that would be like the worst thing ever. Like you used to have a conference where like the founder of Google came with the Google Glass, and like one of the people who came was who went on to found the sensor on the Apple Watch. So that team actually started because of this conference that the lab that I was at put together, because that's how they formed the team. So it's actually had a fairly high impact factor for like a small, like very few people in it, but they used to put on some pretty big events. And actually that leads me nicely into the next point, which is it's weirdly, like I never understood networking and LinkedIn. Like it just seemed like, I remember we went to some conference years ago and someone was like, let's go network. The hell? And they basically just went around like collecting business cards, and I'm like, the hell? Like all I remember, I don't remember her name or anything else. I was just like, wow, I really don't want to say hello to you ever again. So
But
that was like,
network.
yeah, like, do you remember? This was like during JMTM days. Yeah. But I don't remember her name. I don't remember what she does. All I remember was like, this is like the most weird, awkward thing ever. But in San Francisco, or Palo Alto, it's like if you sit down, instead of like, you could go figure out stuff yourself, but there's almost someone there that you can just chat to, and it's just more entertaining with the person explaining the concept to you.
Well, I think this kind of comes back to the fact that it's a big place. Just means there's quite a bit of variance, and both of us kind of parked ourselves in a bubble that happens to interest us. And so there's a big concentration of people who have done the kind of interesting stuff that we're curious about as well. I think that's one thing that helps a lot. And then the other thing is there is also, I mean, there specifically, and I'm sure everywhere as well, but people are like, I found, well, especially with like, you know, if you pull the right levers, like, hey, I'm from Stanford or whatever, people are usually happy to catch up with you and have a chat. And usually then, you know, introduce you on to other people as well. And so there are a lot of people who've kind of probably done or thought about what you're thinking of doing. And being in I think that's why that place kind of works quite well as well, is just because it's a high concentration of people who may not will have either done exactly the same thing before and failed and can tell you why, or have close enough parallels and can introduce you to other people. And so it's kind of almost like that stirring pot of people. It's interesting.
Well, I think that with the added secret sauce of, by and large, I think Americans are like, if someone walks by, they will say hello, or like, you know, I would sit by the fire and they would just say, hey, can I sit, like, and then chat, right? Like, they're friendlier in terms of the superficial first interactions than I think Australians. I feel like Australia is kind of that middle ground between Europe, where everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and like, people will be polite, but they don't really interact, right? And Americans who will do a lot of the, hey, how are you? Like, they will chat, but then it's not like deep relationships. Like, you know a whole bunch of people, but like, you probably don't have as many good friends, right? So I think we're in that sort of middle ground. So going over there, I just found that people came up and spoke a lot more, just like small talk, right? But then you found out about these interesting things much more quickly. Like, as in, I didn't have to do
I would say though in Europe as well, I mean, like when I was traveling, or when I was, you know, floating around at the small towns to pull up to and stuff, people are still pretty friendly. Kind of still got that small town vibe kind of thing at a lot of places there, where maybe it's a different, again, but everybody's there for different stuff. And so the conversations are different, but people are still keen to chat.
Yeah, okay. Like, I mean, I think Europe didn't have the same sort of experience, but I think, I suppose I should phrase it a bit better, which is, in Europe, it's people talk about lifestyle more, whereas in America, people talk about work more. And so therefore,
absolutely. The people I was chatting to on the beach at the restaurant by the beach were mostly talking about not work.
Well, I mean, but this is the thing, is like, I couldn't go to any place and talk to anyone without work being the top sort of, in the first 2 minutes, something coming up about. But that, I think, is American culture, right? Like, as in,
I still remember like meeting some random person for the first time, and within the first 30 seconds of the conversation was how I knew how many, he told me about how many patents he owned. So I was like, what? Okay, cool.
Well, of course. Like, I mean, how else do you introduce yourself? You can't begin with your name. Oh, jeez.
What's the point of that?
Hello, Mr. Call me Mr. Patents.
Mr. Four Patents.
Well, there you go. There you go. This is a little bit different, but what I also found was
a slightly different thing is actually more like around the whole bubbles thing, is that there are quite a few different bubbles. Like, the middle of nowhere places are really middle of nowhere kind of places. And as an example, so I was having a look at next year during hurricane season where to keep the boat safely. And there's a region called the Chesapeake Bay, which is on the east coast of the US, kind of like the biggest estuary, if you like, in the US. So it's kind of like there's an opening to the sea, but it looks like lots of little waterways all going in. And it's this huge area. I think it looks, I don't know, it's big anyway. I will work out how big it is, but it's huge. And in terms of that whole region, I was looking at Io, where specifically to leap boat, and there's like all of these little marinas in tiny little towns. And when you use Google Maps and look at it, there's like 5 houses and just like a marina which has like, 10 or 15 boats in it, or 10 or 15 spots for boats. And, from there, it's just nothing. There's just like forest inwards for like 3 hours of driving. And you're like, huh, This is like proper middle of nowhere.
Yeah, this is like most of Australia, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And they had that too. But I don't know, just having a look around the town, like it looks very, like even in Australia, like if you go to a quiet country town, it looks the same as like, just a slightly more spaced out version of a suburb. But here, it just looks like you've been, okay, the look is completely different. Like it just looks completely different. Like you'll go from, say, California style places to some sort of autumn tree leaves kind of thing, which looks completely different.
yeah, I mean, if you go to like during retrievals, some of the towns that I've been to were only because I was doing the retrieval stuff, and there were towns that had like two streets, and the dirt was red, that there was no bitumen on the road, right?
Yeah.
And it's very, very different, and it's like that. There's no water, so it's like literally
But that's
in the
kind of
middle of
what
the
you
desert.
get. You get like that in normal city. It's about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The
Actually,
variances was kind of different. Like there is obviously some variety in Australia. It's not like it's a zero variety, but you do seem to find all these weird kind of like pockets of, don't know if you'd want to be there, but they seem to be there.
actually, on that note, kind of so this time I was in the SF Palo Alto region and then did trips to New York. But then on the way to Yosemite, like went and stopped by a couple of small towns. But the other thing was earlier this year I was in in Houston, in Texas, right? And then throughout the years, been to random other places. And some of them are in the top 10 most populous cities in the US, like San Antonio, for example, or whatever, right? But you go there and you realize New York is New York and it's really dense and it's really busy. Like LA is kind of similar, traffic jams and lots of people. But the rest, like there is a very sharp decline. Like it goes from like New York, 5 million people or whatever it is, right? And then you go to San Francisco, like quieter than Melbourne, right? And so LA busier again, but then everything else is much quieter. So there's these super dense things that people kind of associate with the US, but the rest of it is actually like much quieter town. Obviously, there's a lot more of them. Like there's a capital city in all 50 states and all that stuff. So like it's compared to like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, there's like times 50, and that's how you get your 300 something million people. But it's not actually like the other cities are not as busy or as happening as people think.
But without going to the whole politics thing, I think that's what, some of those towns seem to have been neglected at times. And that's what might have led for certain people becoming quite popular.
It's not even like neglected. I just think that there's just so many towns that, the big things happen in the big towns, but they're just happy doing their single industry things like, Alaska. Like, there's nothing
this
there.
is a slight tangent. However, I just went to plug in my new iPhone 16 for the first time. My lightning port doesn't fit. It's USB-C.
Well, welcome to the future. Yeah,
What?
that's right.
What is this? I don't know about this.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Back in my day.
What is this? What is this new and amazing invention?
It is completely different.
Wow, it feels like, what's that? 2018 all over again.
Wait, you mean I can get rid of one cable? Oh, wait, no, I can't. AirPods.
They changed that too. They updated it to the new ones.
I can't afford all these things. But yes, no, there's a lot. And I think the other thing is, I think one of my favorite places for photography is still New Zealand. Like the amount of different landscapes you get, like literally as you roll down a hill, like you start from the snow, go down to the meadow and then into like some beach scene. It's crazy. But over there you do get some variety. You just have to go a bit further around to see the variety, but that's another thing that I did notice. It's a big place. There's a few places to get around to. I think New Zealand still wins for the landscape variety, however.
I mean, New Zealand is similar, right? Like, as in, New Zealand is that sort of scenic, grand landscapes. But I think for sheer variety, like, I think you basically get everything in America. Like, I mean, you could argue you get the same in Australia because when you're a continent, you kind of have the width of it. But I just feel like so much of our middle is desert, whereas they have the mountains, they have like the lakes, they have the things. So I think, and like Antelope Canyon and like Grand Canyon, they don't really have any.
People don't go overseas there, which definitely doesn't lead to any problems.
No, not at all. Like, I mean, why do you don't even have to go over a sea, you just have to cross the wall, you know?
That.
There any other differences that come to mind?
No, I think just recently when I was sort of basically planning out next year, it was just, that interesting how weird and different the geography looked. Because like when I was just Google mapping, all right, where is this in the middle? I was like, this is the kind of place that like somebody got murdered in the forest. Like, I was like, oh, okay.
So, yeah, dear listeners, if you're listening, that's how Chandra's planning his thing. Is like most likely places to get murdered. That's where we're gonna plot out this boat.
And if anybody wants to boat sit for me, let me know.
Actually, there's one other thing that I want to say, which is they are very much like this comes back to your micro bubbles thing, but there's location bubbles as well. It's like where I was in Menlo Park, because it's a rich suburb. I think it's like one of the 10th most richest suburbs in like the US, right? You can't live there and be reasonable with your finances. And what I mean is like housing is expensive. There are no free, like cheap grocery stores. Like everything's either a boutique or minimum Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is the cheapest, which is like our East Coast. There is no like discount grocery store in the vicinity. Like it's at least a 20-minute drive away. There's like one McDonald's. The next rung down is like fairly fancy restaurants for the area. There is no other fast food. And so it's kind of like in the vein of the bubbles. And also public transport is really awkward. Like they have a train station, they have one bus line, but all the convenient public transport doesn't exist there because the assumption
I'm pretty
is
sure they don't want convenient public transport.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it's like the rich suburbs, you have to be rich to live there. You can't sort of half-ass it. It has to be one thing or the other. Otherwise, it just doesn't work because you just don't have affordable options. Like the local shopping center, Stanford Mall, has what? It's got a Shake Shack. I think that's like the cheapest burger joint, right? It has Macy's, it has Prada and Louis Vuitton. So those are kind of your options.
Yeah. All I'm saying is thank God for Amazon. I can see why it exists.
Yeah, it's not like basically everything from there. Anyway, that's all I had from More on America.
Yeah.
To end, shall we do our random fact?
Well, I've got a random fact. So, I've been looking into the Chesapeake Bay, and I found out from World War One, there's this ghost fleet of ships which are being sunk. There's like 100 of these things,
Okay.
which they were built, I don't know what for, in World War One as like a fleet, but they never got used, and then they're like, disrepair, blah, blah, blah. So they deliberately sunk 100 of them somewhere in the Chesapeake Bay. I need to double check where so I don't hit them. But they've then made the really cool reefs out of it. So you know how people at the moment are taking out ships and whatnot, sink it, make a cool reef out of it for fish life.
I thought the submarine was an unintentional reef. That
Yeah, that one's a bit deep. But so there's apparently a ghost fleet of like a whole 100 ships just sunk there.
so it wasn't like they were in battle; they just got sunk.
No, they just scuttled them because they were like, well, war's ended now. Can't
what
really
else do we do?
look after them. All right,
Give it to the
reef
fish.
time. Yeah. I don't know if back then they planned to make it a reef or they just sunk it. I suspect they were just like, oh well, quick, sink it before someone looks. But now it's made this cool reef. They were like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Actually, this I had a different random fact, but I will put this one in instead, which is on the note of World War One and stuff. During World War Two, I think, or during the Cold War, America had a program because, they have spy satellites in Russia, and America were like having fights and whatnot, where, it was, sorry, the Germans, so I think it was World War II, had a spy satellite or a spy program where they would try to spy on the US. So the US found out about the spy planes, like bearings and the schedule that they were using. And in order to confuse the Germans, what they would do is they didn't build planes, but they built like giant silhouettes, like out of wood, of what a plane wing in weird designs would look like. And they would leave it out in the sun, right? And then they would get two barrels and they would light them on fire and put it right where the engines would have been, right? And just before the plane came, they would take all of the stuff, hide it in a warehouse. So when the thermal cameras went over, it looked like there was a shadow that looked like a wing, and then these hotspots that would have been engines that had been powered up of these weird experimental crafts that clearly had been moved, right? That was just there, but then now it's been hidden, and then no one had ever seen anything like these designs. So what could they possibly be building? Like, this amazing new, so that's how they kept them off balance, by having these fake, essentially, like, it was just someone mocking up stuff. So apparently, I assume, like, you'd ask
Kind of like a
ChatGPT
show for the satellite.
yeah, right. So they
That'd
didn't
be
actually,
fun.
they didn't actually shoot down the spy plane. They used the knowledge of where the spy plane was going to be to fake all these random things. And right now, there's like this recent report coming out
So
of.
what I'm hearing is fake news.
So it's supposedly, like, how Ukraine invaded into Russia, like, I don't know, a couple of months ago. So supposedly, they didn't manage to destroy some of the Russian paperwork, like when the troops were retreating, the Russian ones, right?
Paper. Okay.
Yeah, like as in just plans and military documents and stuff like that, right? And so supposedly there was a plan from Russia. I don't know if it's like, no one knows if it's true or not, because how are you going to verify it? But there were supposedly these plans to build these artificial trenches, and then to have like one person go light a bunch of fires to make it look like there's more troops. So I was like, this is like 50 years later. Same sort of stuff is being done, but just in different ways. Like, a lot of these things seem to come out in warfare, which is like, hey, let's fake bit of numbers, or fake like we've got some new tech that doesn't actually exist yet.
Love it.
Yeah,
They're
that's
just
my
going on startup
random
technologies.
And on that note, that's it for this episode. Anything you wanted to add?
I would like to say, maybe not. I don't think I'd live in the US, but it's an interesting place nonetheless. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to live there. Not for me.
As we come up to this is nearly October 2024, so election's like 40 days away. So it'll be I think regardless of which way it goes, it'll be an interesting. It will be. I mean, you got to say it's an entertaining place, if nothing else, from a distance. From a distance. All right. With that, we will catch you in the next episode. And remember to like and subscribe, and leave feedback wherever you're listening to this podcast. It helps us enormously. All right. Bye-bye.
Click all of the buttons.